Okay, so hey guys, I'm Ty Kevin 83, and what I'm gonna do today is just go over kind of what's happened in the last year since the last marathon, and when what to expect in this year's Pokemon Marathon, PSR Marathon 2017. So, kind of what happened since last year, we had Tyrant 14 playing Emerald at AGDQ. He had a run go underestimate despite hitting a lot of optionals, and it was really successful despite all those optionals, so that was awesome. His Rayquaza was awesome, so that was a really good showing from Tyrant. And then the next big marathon thing, because I'm really only talking about the biggest marathon, the GDQ showings, we had Kizaron playing Heart Gold, Soul Silver, any percent at SGDQ on the 4th of July, so complete decked out in that 4th of July gear, and he did a great job demonstrating how to speedrun a Gen 4 through 6 game in a marathon setting. But unfortunately, those Gen 4 through 6 changes caught up to him on the final battle, and he didn't actually quite finish the run. But he was underestimated. They were able to sneak it in despite some of those challenges. And yeah, he really did a really good job demonstrating most of the game, except for that final battle just barely not getting to him. And yeah, Kizaron's channel seems to be doing pretty successful since then, so that's awesome. So then, moving further back again since last year, right before last year's marathon, we switched to doing save and quit strats. So some save and quit strats had already been in development when we started doing last year's marathon. And I should get into a little bit of what save and quit strats are. So save and quit strats are, we allow now that for you to save the game and then restart the console. Before, in Pokemon Speedrunning, you were not allowed to restart the console during a run. So that's a change, and that change allows us to play frame perfectly since the boot up of the console more reliably. So a lot of new manipulations where we save and then quit just to play frame perfectly for a period of time have developed. And this has mainly affected Gen 1 through 3 games because it's way more easy to do those frame perfect plays for a period of time. So let's start with Red. Red has gotten Mega Punch Manip since last marathon. It's gotten late EQ since last marathon, but there's not going to be a Red glitchless run at this marathon. However, there will be from Gen 1 a Yellow glitchless run. Yellow has since last marathon gotten Full Moon Manip through 2 Manips, and a partial Forest Manip that includes a Flyer. It's not perfect, there's still some tweaking that can be done to improve those Manips, but they're a huge improvement over last marathon where we just had a Nidoran Manip. And I think at that point we didn't even have a very good Nidoran Manip, we just had the earlier hard brute forced Manips that we did by hand. And then something you won't see in the marathon that was developed for Yellow in the last year was a new whole route for it based on the improvements that we get out of having a starter with the same stats every run. Hey Big Phil, yes, we started out finding that Ty Kevin 11 ditto. Then moving on to Crystal, so it wasn't just Gen 1, it was Gen 2. Gen 2 completely changed because there's Entei Manip now in Crystal. Exarian blew Crystal out of the water with having Entei Manip. That game has completely changed, and we're going to need to do a lot more work to make that Entei Manip more consistent so that people can keep getting top times. Also, Sapphire. Sapphire hasn't changed too much in the route, but the starter now has a very, very consistent, very good stats for Sapphire. So that's a huge thing that's come about since last year's save and quit strat introduction. And now also with Fire Red, Leaf Green, there haven't really been any new save and quit strats, but Snorms did a lot of work rerouting Charmander to make it more consistent, despite the fact that we don't have good save and quit strats for Fire Red, Leaf Green. And so there's been a lot of improvement to the Fire Red, Leaf Green route. It's kind of just a normal improvement that you see people doing to speedruns. So that's cool to see that kind of traditional rerouting and improvement come out of Fire Red and Leaf Green. So now I'm gonna move on to part 2. That's kind of a recap of what's happened in the last year, and then I'm gonna move into a little more of that as I talk through the marathon plan. So the first thing going on in the marathon is Pokemon Sun and Moon, and I'm gonna do all my times in Eastern time for America because that's the time zone I'm in. So if you're off a little bit, if you're not in Eastern time, just keep that in mind. And there's also a link that I will send in my chat right here. It'll pop up then on my screen, so you guys can copy that down and link that. This is the schedule, and it will adapt to your time zone if you take that link. So the first thing going on in the schedule is Pokemon Sun and Moon. Now this is big because we haven't had Pokemon Sun and Moon in a marathon previously. This is the introduction of Pokemon speedrunning of Sun and Moon. So that's going to be very big. Garfield the Lightning should put a great show on for that game. He's been doing a lot of work on it. It's starting at 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time and is estimated to go for 5 hours and 40 minutes. Then at 4:15 p.m. Eastern, we have Yellow by Me, any percent glitchless. I'm going to be doing a bit of a modified marathon safe route, and that should help keep us under a very, very consistent estimate of 2 hours and 5 minutes. Then for Fire, this next one is huge. This is a race of Fire Red Leaf Green between Tyrant 14 and Pulse Effects. They're estimating 220 for this race. Now this is huge. Pulse recently got second place by only a very, very small margin in Fire Red Leaf Green. And then Tyrant 7 days ago posted a time only about a minute behind Pulse's time. And because anything can happen in a marathon setting, that is an extremely tight time window for those two runners. It's going to be an extremely close marathon to watch. So really get excited about that one. That one's happening at 6:25 Eastern, 2 hour and 20 minute estimate. Now, for moving on from there, we have Exarian U debuting his Crystal Any Percent Glitchless reroute. I don't know if he's going to be using Entei in a marathon setting because it's very difficult. Oh, yes. Thanks, Big Phil. Tyrant and Pulse should be doing a Charmander versus Squirtle race. So the routes won't be the same. The routes will be different because of using different starters in the marathon. So that should be huge. Yeah, so Exarian, I don't know if he's doing Entei Manip. I doubt he would be. It's not marathon consistent in my opinion. But he will be playing Crystal where that big Entei reroute has happened. And we will see what he does to get that top marathon time posted. And as Exarian, one of the top pillars of the Pokemon speedrunning community, he is renowned for his several world records. Then moving on from there, we're now on the Saturday runs. 12:25 a.m., so just 25 minutes into Saturday. Paper Guy 27 should be doing Coliseum, and Coliseum is an estimated 4 hours and 20 minutes. Now here's the deal with Coliseum, guys. Coliseum is almost as hype as the Fire Red Leaf Green race, because Coliseum was just improved with a massive new glitch. What this glitch allows you to do is use an X item, which normally can only be used on the turn on the Pokemon which turn it is. It allows you to use it on another Pokemon. So for instance, you have Feraligatr and Espeon, and you have Feraligatr first and Espeon second. Well, you can use Feraligator's turn now to use an X special on Espeon and boost the power of Espeon's Psychic, so that on Espeon's turn you can Psychic with that extra X special boost, so 50% extra damage. Whereas before, all you could do was use X special on Espeon's turn, and then the next turn use the Psychic with that boost. Because if you used X special on Feraligator's turn, you could only X special Feraligatr. So there's a cool little glitch that allows you to use that X special on the other Pokemon, and then on that Pokemon's turn, use a move. So that's huge. That should give Paper Guy a huge improvement to that run. It'll be really cool to see what he's thought of, because even today, Exarian and Paper Guy are working on a new route for Coliseum that will debut at this marathon. Next up after that, Like a Noob will be running Pokemon Mystery Dungeon, any percent save and quit, and I believe he'll be doing a blue version of Pokemon Mystery Dungeon. Now, it's a 2 hour and 15 minute run, And Like a Noob has been working on for this Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Blue Run for almost 2 years. He's got first place in the category. It should be awesome to see him do that run. Then next up after that, at 7:10 a.m. Eastern, we have Shiru666 doing an Emerald Any Percent glitchless run, estimated 3 hours long. And Shiru is a top Emerald runner. He's been playing Emerald or posting Emerald times for about a year, and he, I believe, is second place in Emerald right now. So that should be a really nice, well-executed marathon run to see from Shiru. After Shiru's Emerald run at 10:15 a.m. Eastern, we have Reverse Badge Order Pokemon Red Blue from Gym Freak. So I'm going to explain that a little bit, what that category is. Reverse Badge Order means that they are allowed to use glitches, but only so that they can then do the badges in the reverse order. So you can do anything you want in terms of glitches, but you have to then fight Gym 8, Gym 7, Gym 6, Gym 5, Gym 4, Gym 3, Gym 2, Gym 1, and then go fight the Elite Four and get to the Hall of Fame. So it's a Hall of Fame completion run with that stipulation that you have to fight the badges in the reverse order. And there should be some really cool new strats from Gym Freak with the save and quit that's been happening. He's been working on it for about the last year. I think most of the work was done right away after save and quit happened, but it should still be cool to see what has been changing in that run. After Gym Freak's Pokemon Red Blue Reverse Badge Order run at 10:55 a.m. Eastern Time, we have Deathline doing Pokepark Wii Any Percent. I think this is a new game to the Pokemon Speedrunning Marathon. It's a 2 hour and 25 minute estimate. He placed a first place time in Pokepark Wii with his first time on speedrun.com when he put it up a year and 2 months ago, and over that last year he has improved his time by 2 minutes. So this seems to be a very consistent run, very small window of times that you can get with it. It should be cool to see what happens with Pokepark Wii in a marathon, because I don't think we've gotten to see that yet. And it should also be cool to see content from Deathline, who's kind of new to the speedrunning scene from what I can tell. Pokemon Diamond Pearl Any Percent is up after that from Craftedite. So at 1:25 p.m. Eastern, this is a 1 hour and 10 minute long speedrun. Craftedite is a top runner of a multitude of Pokemon speedrunning games, and by a wide margin he excels in Diamond Pearl and Black and White 2. These are his top games, and he will be running both for this year's Pokemon Speedrunning Marathon. So at, let's see here, again, 1:25 p.m. Eastern, hour and 10 minutes for Diamond Pearl, and then again, Crafted will come back on Sunday at 6:30 a.m. Eastern for 3 hours and 40 minutes to do Black 2 and White 2. And then after that after that run on Saturday at 2:40 p.m., there will be a debut of Pokemon Prism in the Pokemon Speedrunning Marathon. We wanted to have some debut of some ROM hacks, and this is a ROM hack, I believe, based off of Gen 2. Pokemon Prism is a really cool ROM hack. They will be playing it glitchless, and it'll be about 3 hours and 10 minutes, and that run will be done by Crazy Dan. Crazy Dan also on Sunday, he's another runner doing multiple games. He at 10:15 a.m. on Sunday will be doing a Pokemon Red Blue Baton Pass speedrun. So Baton Pass is a category where you can only do each major fight, so like gym leaders and rivals, you can only do those with a single Pokemon once. So if you beat the Misty Gym with your Nidoran, you can't use Nidoran anymore for any other major battles. So you've got to keep swapping back and forth, catching new stuff. So there's a bunch of cool manips, and that'll be a cool thing to see, a new Baton Pass speedrun from Crazy Dan. And that's at 10:15 a.m. Sunday, and it's 2.5 hours long. So that's and then back to Saturday. So we went 10:55 a.m. Deathline, 1:25 p.m. Eastern Crafted, 2:40 p.m. Eastern Crazy Dan, and now next after Crazy Dan's let's see, Prism Run, we have Kizaron at 5:55 p.m. Eastern Time doing a Pokemon Sapphire run. Now, like I said, Sapphire has been improved with a new starter minip that will give you a really good starter, and Keyzron's expecting that to be about a 2.5 hour long run. A lot of the estimates I've mentioned before have been somewhat close to the time that it takes to beat the game, maybe 10 minutes off of like a world record time. Sapphire is a much larger window than that. Sapphire is not a very consistent marathon run, so it'll be cool to see how close Keyzron gets to that 2 hour world record time in a marathon setting. Really, really large window for what can happen in a marathon in Sapphire. Cool run up after Keyzron. After Keyzron at 8:30 p.m., we have Roro doing Pokemon Stadium 2 Challenge Cup Master Ball blindfolded. So this is a Challenge Cup run of Pokemon Stadium 2, but Roro will be blindfolded. So he will have to go entirely off of sound cues to finish this run. And that should be really cool to see what he does to finish without his vision. You'd think vision's a pretty useful thing for a speedrun. Roro gets away without it. And that's an hour and 15 minutes long. And from that, we will transition at 9:50 p.m. into a new thing for a Pokemon Marathon. We have Pokemon Fire Red, Leaf Green, Elite Four Round 2 from Storms. And that is an estimated 4 hour and 10 minute long run from Storms. Now, this is different because it's round 2. We already talked about the race of Squirtle versus Charmander, Tyrant versus Pulse, Fire Red, Leaf Green, Glitchless. And that's on day 1. But on day 3, at the end of day 2 on Saturday, Storms will be reprising Fire Red, Leaf Green to finish the second round. And you really have to do the whole run again and demo the whole thing again. Because from the beginning of the run, you have to start catching Pokemon, because you need to get up to 60 Pokemon, 60 unique Pokemon in your Pokedex to get to these Sevi Islands, which allows you to progress through the story and beat the Elite Four the second time. So that is a new thing going on from Storms. You have extra quests, bunch of catches. It should be really cool to watch. On Sunday, kicking off the beginning on Sunday, we have Pokehero doing Pokemon Battle Revolution. This is a very, very niche run that Pokehero will be doing. Pokehero has been improving his time in Battle Revolution over the past year with a new time just 12 days before the marathon. So you should give a good introduction to this underplayed console game. Let's see here. Next up after Pokehero, yep, I've already mentioned that Crafted was good at Black 2 and White 2. He'll be doing the Black 2, White 2 any percent category after Pokehero's run on Sunday at 6:30 a.m. Eastern Time, and it should last about 3 hours and 40 minutes. Up after Crafted's run at 10:15 a.m., we have that Baton Pass run that I already talked about from Crazy Dan. Hey Bionicle, hey BR Stallings, thanks for coming in to watch the hype stream for the Pokemon Marathon. We have Pokemon Red Blue Baton Pass. I already talked about you have to hand off between the different Pokemon. That's happening then on Sunday after Crafted's run. It's 2.5 hours. It's awesome. Crazy Dan has been working on it for a while. I'm sure should be cool to see what's going on. After this, we get to see at 12:50 p.m. Eastern Time, we see Pokemon Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire, ORAS, any percent, but with Torchic, not Mudkip, to switch things up a bit, and that's from Etiquette. Last off for the day, we have 5 p.m. Sunday, August 6th, finishing off the marathon. 4 hours long. It's Pokemon Heart Gold, Soul Silver. I already talked about how Keyzron showed up to take on any percent at GDQ. He'll be finishing the game any percent glitchless at this year's Pokemon Speedrunning Marathon to cap things off. Kizaran has cemented himself as a pillar of the PSR community, becoming a partnered streamer and doing that GDQ run, so it should be awesome to see him cap off the marathon. Baton Pass is a glitchless category, Big Phil. So it is, yeah, so going back to Crazy Dan's run earlier on Sunday, that Baton Pass run, you have to hand off between different Pokemon for each gym, and it is glitchless. Let's see here. I don't believe we have a Worcester run in the schedule. Yep, as far as I see, there is not a Worcester run this year's schedule. And yep, so at the schedule I have right now is estimated to end at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Yeah, Baton Pass involves a lot of really cool manips. There's a lot of cool things with one-hit KO moves that happen in that run. Alright, so now that I've gone through the schedule, I'm just going to wrap up with a few more Pokemon news-related things, and maybe some terminology updates from this year's runners. So for general Pokemon news, we've recently had Pokken Tournament DX come out. So if you're into the Switch, if you were into Pokken Tournament on the Wii U, Pokken Tournament DX for the Switch is the game for you. Go check it out. Then, at the end of this year, Pokemon Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon will be coming out for the 3DS. It's Pokemon Sun and Moon, but with extra story stuff, new Pokemon, maybe new forms. I'm not really sure so much what they do these days in Gen 7, but it's Gen 6, Gen 7. I don't what gen are we even on these days? But with these latest gens, it should be really cool to see what happens with Sun and Moon, with the new Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon. Gen 2 is coming to the 3DS Virtual Console. So that's going to be cool. If you are a fan of Crystal, if you're a fan of Gold, Silver, I don't think Crystal, I think it's just Gold, Silver. If you're a fan of those games, go check them out on the Virtual Console when they launch. Should be good to have them back, and in a way that you can trade around easier with your friends these days. And then the last big general Pokemon announcement, we have a main series game has been announced to be coming to the Switch sometime in the future. We don't know, and it's not going to be this winter. So if you have a Switch, if you want to Switch, look out for the main series Pokemon game news. That will be really interesting to see how that works out as a speedrun. Yeah, I'm pretty hyped for Gen 2 as well, because it'll be a little more accessible now that it's being done on the Virtual Console. Moving on to my last segment, I'm just going to go over some general lingo that you should have ready and explained for the Pokemon Marathon. So if people are throwing out crazy words that you don't necessarily have caught up, this will help get you caught up with what our lingo is at in the community. So we have S plus Q manip is often how it's written. Save and quit manip is what it's short for, and I already talked a little bit about that at the beginning of the stream. Save and quit manip is when you turn off the console and turn it back on, and then press buttons in such a way that the game plays the same every time. We call it frame perfectly. And what that does is allows us to perfectly control our stats for a run. Now, there's this thing called IGTO that is a component of that. So IGT stands for in-game timer, and so that's in-game timer 0. And what it refers to is a problem in the coding of the Gen 1 games where the in-game timer calculations are done quite in an interesting way, and it makes it such that even if you save in the same spot every time and play the same way, because the in-game timer is being tracked at a faster level than you can see, you might not actually be saving the game in the same state as the way it was designed for. So often it's a 1 in 60 problem. Some manips have even more failures than that because of more variance between individual subseconds of in-game time. The next term is DSum. DSum doesn't exist much anymore in Pokemon Speedrunning, but you might see it. DSum refers to a process where you can track encounters as they happen. because they're on a cycle, a looping cycle. So if you see one encounter, you know what the next encounter in the cycle is, and you can wait the right amount of time to hit that encounter you want to see. The next note after dsum is dv. dv is short for determiner value. It's a thing used in Gen 1 and 2, and it is a stat that is randomly calculated, as much as randomly possibly calculated, for each individual Pokemon. And that's what we're using save and quit manips to change for starters, making sure that we get 15s and DVs. DVs are worth about twice a base stat. So if a Pokemon has 50 base stat and you have 15 DV, that means it's actually worth about 30 base stat points. So a Pokemon with 0 DV that has 50 base stat in it, so let's say you have 0 DV attack and you have 50 base stat attack, then it's worth 50 for that Pokemon. But if you have 15 DV and 50 base stat attack, then you have 80 attack effectively. So that's a huge boost actually in that Pokemon's effective attack if it only has 50. It's actually a really, really significant boost to have all 15 of those points, because it becomes worth 30 effective base stat points to manip a perfect stat. And then moving on, IVs. IVs are kind of like DVs, except that instead of multiplying by 2, now you just have a full 32-bit IV. So you have 31 different IV possibilities. 0 to 31. And that, so now instead of having 0 to 15 times 2, you have 0 to 31 for IVs. And that's Gen 3 and later. So and the IV stands for individual value. So again, it's individually unique to each Pokemon, and there's one for each stat. So you have an IV for HP, you have an IV for attack, defense, speed, special attack, special defense. And ideally you want all those to be 31s, but because there's actually such a larger range and so many more stats in Gen 3, you have to do special attack and special defense separately. So there's more things to try to take control of. It's harder to get all 31s. Actually impossible. So, yeah, so a lot of those manips and save and quits are designed to improve DVs in Gen 1 and 2, IVs Gen 3 to 6. The next big term we see a lot in Pokemon Speedrunning is GBP, and why is that? GBP is the Game Boy Player. Pokemon Gens 1 through 3 have to all be played through the Game Boy Player attachment to the GameCube, and then the GameCube's video signal can be piped to a computer where that signal can be uploaded to a stream to the internet. What we use now, though, is something called GBI. For a lot of runners use this, and it's a homebrew hack on top of the Game Boy Player that has the signal output a little more cleanly through those old analog connections. And so that your computer can decode it more cleanly, and it looks much sharper being streamed on the internet. So watch out for people talking about using GBI. It's the Game Boy interface. It runs on top of the Game Boy Player, and it's a new thing that's happened within the last year or two to make games look a little bit prettier, also have a little bit less input lag, which is obviously a benefit to streamers if they're starting out. Sometimes you don't worry about that so much if you've already gotten used to a certain amount of input lag, but it is better generally to have less input lag. That's the lingo I have to go over. I hope you guys enjoyed watching the stream and the hype video. So I'm gonna wrap it up there. If you guys have any questions about the marathon, feel free to hit me up. I'm on Discord. I'm hyped. Big Phil's hyped. You should be hyped for the PSR marathon starting this Friday at 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time.